This is Bruce Friedman of Adult Site Broker, and welcome to Adult Site Broker Talk, where each week we interview one of the movers and shakers of the adult industry, and we give you a tip on buying and selling websites. This week we'll be speaking with Monte Khan of Right of the Dot. At Adult Site Broker, we've doubled our affiliate payouts on ASB Cash. Now when you refer sellers or buyers to us, you'll receive 20% of our broker commission on any and all sales that result from that referral for life. You can either place a link to us on your site or refer buyers and sellers through an email introduction. ASB Cash is the first affiliate program for an adult website brokerage. Check out asbcash.com for more details and to sign up. We've also added an events section to our website at adultsitebroker.com. Now you can get information on B2B events on our website, as well as special discounts reserved for our clients. Go to adultsitebroker.com for more details. Now let's feature our property of the week that's for sale at Adult Site Broker. We're proud to offer for sale an innovative marketing agency that specializes in managing the top 0.01% OnlyFans profiles in the world. It's just under a year old, but is growing very quickly. They fully manage the workflow from promotion to monetization. They've developed an internal CRM that empowers the sales management, marketing automation, and analytics on the platform. This enables them to consistently drive in-target traffic to profiles and efficiently monetize them. The company is already doing over 2 million euros in annual revenue from just over 20 OnlyFans accounts. They have a database of over 1 million contacts and 600,000 users. This is an outstanding opportunity for someone who wants to enter the world of OnlyFans management and immediately become one of the top agencies in the world. Or established agencies can acquire the company and expand their business. Only 2.59 million euros. Now time for this week's interview. My guest today on Adult Site Broker Talk is Monte Khan of Right of the Dot. Monte, thanks for being back with us today on Adult Site Broker Talk.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm glad to be here. I think it's been a few years since we spoke last and did a podcast. I think I was in San Diego visiting back then.
It's been a good while. Yeah, you're always somewhere besides home. Do you have a home anymore?
I sure do. I live in Lauderdale by the Sea, Florida, which is outside Fort Lauderdale, but I'm currently in Vail, Colorado on a family ski trip.
That's so awesome. Oh, when I die and come back, I want to be you. Okay.
Oh.
So Monte is a pioneer and innovator in the domain space. He's brokered and auctioned. Are you ready? A staggering $570 million in premium domain names. You heard that right. He's also a board advisor, real estate investor, and developer. Monte's the founder and president of Right of the Dot, a licensed business and premium domain auction and brokerage firm, providing internet consulting and advisement, specializing in new and existing TLD strategy, resolution services, premium domain market positioning, sales, and services. I'm out of breath. He is the managing member of .Hip Hop LLC, the new ICANN accredited domain registry for .Hip Hop domain names. He was the founder and CEO of Moniker.com. You might remember those guys, a leading ICANN accredited registrar, and he was the president of Snapnames.com. He is also an active investor in many developments in Costa Rica and Las Vegas. We were talking offline about one in Las Vegas. We need to talk about it. Sounds pretty cool. He also has numerous other business interests. Monte has been pioneering domain and aftermarket services since 1994. During this time, he's helped many new and existing TLDs have successful launches through registrar promotions, sales, and auctions of premium domains through marketing, brokerage, and sales. Monte has more than 30 years of experience in the healthcare, high-tech, and internet fields. He was one of the early pioneers of the industry and started investing in domain names in 1994 and started the first online domain brokerage business. His resume includes brokering the industry's first domain sale for over $1 million with the sale of wallstreet.com and the industry's first $2 million domain sale with the sale of autos.com. Later, he sold the highest dollar domain in history with the sale of porn.com for $9.5 million and slots.com for $5.5 million. He's also the visionary behind live and online domain auctions. He was also the creator of domain appraisals, domain escrow, and Whois Privacy services. Monte was voted into the 2010 Domain Hall of Fame by industry peers. He's spoken and presented at more than 160 conferences. Monte graduated from the University of Kentucky with degrees in marketing, biology, and business administration. Let's talk about that project in Vegas you were just telling me about. It sounds just wild.
Yeah, very excited about it. So, as you know, I'm invested in a attraction in Costa Rica called Diamante Eco
Mm-hmm.
Adventure Park, and it's a zip line park with an animal sanctuary at the end. And part of the same group of those of my partners, we all started a project in Vegas. It's going to be called Crash and Burn. It's going to be a bar and restaurant and barcade kind of theme with a live music venue inside, right on Fremont Street. And on the rooftop of this 4-story building will be an outside skydiving, air floating attraction, similar to, if you ever seen an iFly or
Mm-hmm.
a tube where you see people skydiving inside or floating in the air. This will
Sure.
be open air, so out in the open, and you're going to rise above Fremont Street, and people on Fremont Street will be able to see you flying high in the air, above the bar and restaurant and above the buildings. It'll be really cool.
So cool. So cool.
Yeah, we're going to open
Go
up
ahead.
in September, October of this year, just in
Mm-hmm.
time for the Formula One in Las Vegas and for the Super Bowl, which is happening in 2024.
That is neat. Yeah, it is going to be in Vegas, isn't it? Oh, I so hope my Niners are in that one. Oh, my goodness. So, Monty, it's been a while since we've talked. Now, I hear differing opinions about the overall domain market, specifically in the adult space. What's the current market for domains?
Well, their overall market for domains is okay. We're in a challenging economic period of time
Mm-hmm.
with cryptocurrencies and worldwide markets, depleted a little bit.
Yeah.
Domain names are a alternative investment strategy for many, but
Yes.
it happens to be one of the few assets that retain its value or has some value that's above expectations over time. So
Hmm.
whether it's an adult name, which is actually kind of a slower market, as you know, in this time period,
Yes, I
or
do.
a premium domain name, keyword, one word, dictionary terms, search terms, those types of things. Some of those key.com names are still selling and for some for record values. I notice in the adult industry that, with the coming together and the consolidation of the industry, back when I started in the mid 90s to late 90s, the
Mm-hmm.
adult industry had a completely different footprint. It was,
Sure.
20 main companies, hundreds of affiliates,
Yeah.
and then a bunch of sub and second tier companies. Now there's 5, main companies. They're also in the mainstream industry as well. The
Yes.
affiliate business has kind of changed so much, and of course, it went from paid to free. Companies make their money in different ways, so
Yes.
a lot of those adult names aren't as valuable as they may or should have been,
Hmm.
in the last couple of years. A lot of people are making big plays in second tier domain names and driving traffic and using other techniques to build value on
Hmm.
those websites versus
Interesting.
things like porn.com or sex.com or pussy.com and things like that, names I've been involved in sales in from the past.
If you look into your crystal ball, what do you think if I buy an adult domain name today, what are the prospects? A good one.
You mean prospects to sell or develop?
The prospects to for it to grow over the years.
Well, I'm still a big believer in natural type in traffic. Obviously, keyword domain names, whether it be adult or regular domain names, those that get
Hmm.
natural type in traffic because people are still typing them into the URL line.
Yeah.
Um, to me, that's a huge benefit in terms of value because you're not paying for search, you're not paying for PPC or CPC to position that name artificially or naturally into a position. So,
It's true.
um, still, the keyword dictionary terms, the keyword traffic drivers are the most valuable domain names, and I think those will always be valuable over time.
Yeah.
.com, continues to be the king of the roost,
Yes.
just because it was the first established commercial domain name in our environment.
Sure.
However, the new generations of users, our children, for example, they
Hmm.
don't know what com stands for. They don't know what it means. They don't know the importance of it. So they're using alternative extensions already. And because there's a lot of .com names already gone, they're using the alternative domain names.
Yes.
And as you know, a lot of alternate extensions like .ai for artificial intelligence, which is,
Sure.
a country code, and so is .io. And .cc, if you remember the old days, .cc used to
Hmm.
stand for carbon copy. .tv, which is Tuvalu, had a meaning for television.
Hmm.
And now there's 1,000 new top level domain names like .hip hop and like .auto and like .adult and like .sex and triple X and all these other
And
extensions
porn. Right. Right.
and .porn. So they all have their niches.
Hmm.
Obviously the secondary extensions or the top level extensions that were just added in 2013,
Hmm.
they're not going to get the natural typing traffic that .com gets. So once a website is built onto that, domain name, and then search engine placement is positioned properly, then that will drive the interest in the traffic, and that will raise the value of those.
Interesting. So you're okay with the domain name adult site broker?
Oh yeah, love it.
I do too. That's why I bought it, and so many more. So, how are domain names good investments in 2023?
Well, because there was a little bit of a recessionary hit to the domain name industry,
Hmm.
obviously people are divesting in some of their portfolios. So it's a good time to invest in domain names at a discount, like it always has been in these recessionary periods.
There you go.
Since I was in the business in 1994, I've faced three recessionary periods.
Hmm.
And the first recessionary period, which was in the early 1999 2000 period,
Hmm.
selling domain names back then kept us in business.
Interesting.
And that was helping people liquidate domain names that they needed to divert that money to pay tuition for school and
Right.
basically pay bills. We as the main middleman or the main brokerage / auctioneer at the time, we made our living helping buyers and sellers transact those transactions, obviously.
Hmm.
So we're in that kind of same situation right now because we're facing
Interesting.
economic hardship. Some
Hmm.
people just aren't as, there's liquid domainers, which have a lot of cash, a lot of money, just like cryptocurrency and other fields that are
Hmm.
alternative investment fields. And then there's others that are dabbling in it as a hobby,
Right.
and they've put some a substantial amount of money into that, but their main part of business is another job, another industry opportunity, and so they're more
Hmm.
willing to say, you know what, something I would sell for $10,000 in 2019, 2020, I'd sell for 3 or 4 thousand now.
Yeah.
And, so we're looking at, in some cases, 50 to 70% discounts on,
Hmm.
you know, some premium and some sub premium properties. But
Right.
on the other hand, some of the largest transactions have happened because of some of those opportunities. At the
Hmm.
same time, I just got done with a $4.2 million transaction. I can't say what the name is, but it was a company that majorly shifted their brand from a two-word domain name to a one-word
Hmm.
premium domain name, and it was very strategic time for their business, and so it made sense for them to spend that money, to do so.
Okay. Are you in a buying mode right now when it comes to domains, personally?
No, I'm more in. I own a few thousand domain names now. I started off
That's
registering about
all,
2,000.
huh?
Well, but I'm not actively like buying names in the aftermarket. I'll register some, new registrations that I see keywords or trending opportunities from the news or from technology.
Hmm.
You know, uh, Internet documents and posts and stuff. That's how some of this stuff started in the very beginning, anyway. And there's still some great opportunities to buy domain names and various extensions with certain keywords that are, something into the future. But I primarily help others divest or invest in domain names through our right of the dot brokerage and our auctions.
Okay.
And so I'm still probably the only market maker in the industry because of the
Interesting.
auction environment that we produce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I still do all the auctions in the industry for NamesCon.
Hmm.
We're going to be doing an auction for the first time at Miami NFT Week, and we're
Hmm.
going to be auctioning off Web3 domain names and NFTs and also Web 2 domains.
Mhm.
And so we're getting into all kinds of other kinds of digital real estate. So we're evolving with the industry and what's hot and what's not.
I haven't seen you do one at an adult show for a while.
I have not, but I'm not opposed to it. We used to hold the
Mm.
biggest auctions ever
I know.
at the adult shows, and I traveled to Amsterdam,
Mhm.
we talked about Lisbon, and I
Mhm.
did an auction there, and Macau, China, I did an
Right.
auction there for the adult industry, and of course in Vegas, and of course in South Florida where I live for
Mhm.
the largest conferences in the world. So
Hmm.
we helped sell some of the biggest adult domain names in in the entire industry. So,
Right.
but I'm open to it, and I just
Mm.
got tapped on the shoulder by Affiliate Summit because they want to
Mhm.
see another auction again
Great.
because it was really exciting, back 10, 15
Mhm.
years ago, and they're
Right.
looking for ways to build excitement for that.
Well, just let me know. You know that I know all the promoters very well. So if you want to do something, say, with TES in Prague or, um, the, um, yeah, I can't think of it right now, but um,
Well, AVN.
no, no, that's not who I'm thinking. That's not who I'm thinking of. But anyway, yeah, but I know all the promoters, so I can certainly help you.
Oh, I really
Um,
appreciate it.
Oh, of course, of course. How long have we known each other, Monty? Geez, you were at Moniker when we met, and how many years ago was that?
Well, I started in the domain industry in 1994, but I started
Mhm.
Moniker as a actual company in 2001, I believe, is when I acquired the registrar.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
it's about when I
been a
and
long
that's
time.
about when I got into adult. I think I've known you since then. So,
Yeah,
yeah. Hey.
I was a reseller for several registrars before that,
Mhm.
and then decided to buy a registrar from a Canadian company in Mississauga
Mhm.
and rename it Moniker. So
Yeah,
that's how Moniker became Moniker.
and it did very well. Did
Yeah,
very well.
and
Yes, I u
I really
I
I did
used them. I
focus
used
on the
them till
adult.
you left.
Yeah, yeah, I was the only registrar that really focused on the adult industry, really,
I
because
remember. I remember.
yeah.
That's why I
So
used you because you
yeah, so
supported us.
in the 90s, I had very high degree of respect for the adult industry, the
Yeah.
adult company CEOs and leaders
Right.
because
Mhm.
it was one of the most regulated types of businesses back then.
Big time.
They basically created credit card transactions on the web. They helped
Yep.
with secure socket layers. They were very loyal companies once you got their business. And so I started showing
Right.
up at ABN conferences back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Mhm.
And I was the only registrar, there.
Yeah. Internext went along
Yep.
with it.
You're
Yep.
next. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Which they used to co-own. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So you have a lot of auctions with Ride of the Dot. What's the schedule for this year?
So we're doing two auctions in the next several months. Actually, there'll probably be a couple more added before between now and the end of the year.
Okay.
So we're for the first time we're going to be going to NFT Miami NFT Week, which is
Hmm.
a 3 to 5,000 attendee show in
Jeez.
Miami, which is the start of Miami Tech Week, and then the Bitcoin conference comes to Miami
Mhm.
also. And so the organizers there are really excited to have something new and exciting. So we're going to do an auction on April 1st, I believe. I don't know the exact time yet. We're still working at the schedule, but
I think this will run after that, unfortunately, but, how about after that?
after that will be NamesCon in
Mhm.
Austin, Texas, which
Mhm.
is the 28th. I think it's the 28th or 30th of May through
Mhm.
June 3rd, something like that.
Okay.
I think it's May 30th through June 3rd.
Okay.
And so I've always done that auction, and
Yeah.
also, if you remember, prior to that, all the traffic auctions before that as well.
I do.
So
I
that'll be
do.
a pretty big show. They're combining NamesCon uh, with their cloud computing company.
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember the name of it, but I'll remember in a minute. CloudFest, sorry. So there'll be a CloudFest and NamesCon combined in Austin, Texas during those dates, and we'll do a
Right.
live auction on the second day of that conference.
Cloudfest sounds like it should be a, cannabis, event, but that's just,
It should be.
that's just
It's
my,
the largest cloud computing hosting conference in the world, actually.
it's
So
like,
the same group that owns NamesCon or has the right to it,
cool.
they run CloudFest
It's
as
like,
well.
wow, man, we're gonna go to Cloudfest,
Yeah,
but
in
anyway.
Austin, Texas, man.
Yeah, exactly. So, I've used your company many times for domain appraisals. How important is it to get a domain appraised prior to putting it on the market?
I invented the appraisal model back in 1998, I think.
Hmm.
Once we started selling some domain names, people always want to know, well, what's my domain name worth? So, if you think of domain names as virtual property or again, compare it to physical property, some of the same attributes apply. So,
Right.
if you have a piece of property in downtown Manhattan, why is that piece of property important?
Hmm.
For example. So it has tons of street traffic,
Right.
tons of car traffic.
Location, location,
You're more
location.
likely, yeah, location. So you're more likely to walk into a vendor or into a store or into an
Hmm.
apartment building that's on Madison Avenue or Fifth Avenue or some premium
Hmm.
place, or
Hmm.
beachfront property, like kind of close to where I live, premium beachfront condos. They tend to be more valuable because of its desirability, how close it is to something that's, desirable. In the case of a downtown location, how much traffic goes through that
Hmm.
particular street corner or avenue. And type in domain traffic is very similar to that traffic. So if you have a type in domain name, a keyword like autos.com or like
Yeah.
wallstreet.com or like porn.com, which I sold, all
Yeah.
those, they got tons, literally thousands of unique visitors every single day. So
Right.
automatically that comes with value because you don't
Just
have to
type
pay
in.
for that
Yeah.
traffic.
Sure.
It's natural traffic. So
Right.
um, when you ask for an appraisal, there's a couple reasons, and I've done appraisals for all kinds of reasons. I had to do appraisal recently, and I've done it many times for a divorce case. So you have
Yeah. Yeah.
a party in the divorce that has a portfolio of domain names. The lawyers have no idea how to assess that value.
Right.
There's no expert except somebody like me
Right.
who can say, okay, this is what this portfolio is worth, or this one domain name, and how do you split that asset between husband and wife, or husband and
Sure.
husband, wife and wife, whatever it is. Um, the
Welcome to
other reason
2023.
that the other reason for appraisal, which I did tons of, were for IRS donation purposes. So if somebody wrote off a domain name and donated it to charity, they wanted to use that appraisal, obviously, to take down their capital gains.
Sure.
That's something I don't do as much anymore because the IRS treats domain names a little bit differently than physical property.
Mm.
So you have to be very careful when you do something like that.
Interesting.
Bankruptcies is another
Mm.
one, similar to the divorce reasons. Corporations, I do a lot of appraisal work for corporations when they're either ready to buy another company and take, like as a merger and acquisition, and they're
Right.
trying to assess the value of what that portfolio on the other side looks like if it is a domain portfolio.
Interesting.
So I did one for Bosch. You remember the company Bosch?
Oh yeah.
They make kitchen appliances. They're also the
Hmm.
number one manufacturer of windshield wipers, and they
Yep.
also make brakes for BMWs
Hmm.
and Mercedes
Right.
and a number of other things. Well, they ended
Right.
up buying a healthcare company about 15 years ago,
Hmm.
and they didn't buy the healthcare company because of the healthcare portfolio. They bought it because of a software technology that they wanted to use in another part of their business.
Interesting.
So they had this portfolio of medical names, which they didn't have any idea what the value was. And I'm talking about direct disease related to medical names like AIDS.com, cancercure.com,
Jeez.
cancertreatment.com, leprosy.com, all these keyword domain names.
Jeez.
So they hired me to assess the value of those domain names, and then I helped sell off the portfolio.
Nice.
So those are just a
Nice.
handful of reasons. And then, of course, if somebody just wants to know, what's a name worth before they either buy it or they sell it to get an idea
Yeah. There you go.
of what to expect.
Yeah. There you go. But I mean, in terms of look, I hear from people all the time. I've got a rule. Well, the first thing I do is when if somebody sends me domains, which frankly I'm kind of moving away from domains because of what we talked about at the top of the program. For more than anything else, they tend to be difficult to sell in the adult space unless you got a porn.com. The whole thing is if somebody wants to look at selling a domain name, let's say it passes my eye test, which my eye test is getting more stringent every day. I go,
Is
okay,
that because you need glasses?
no, have those.
I'm just kidding.
That was good, Monty. That was really good. He'll be here all week. So the thing is that I tell them I have a requirement. You need to get an appraisal because don't ask me what it's worth because that's not my area. Okay, I've got a guy who is an expert, and that guy would be you. Okay,
Well, thank
so
you.
it's pretty obvious, I mean, and you're welcome. So if they don't want to pay for an appraisal, okay, thank you. That's kind of the deal. Most people, frankly, who come to me with the domain isn't really worth the price of registration. Or they'll give me
Yeah, that happens a lot.
they give me a list of like 200 domains. I tell them I'll always look. Okay. And I go, quite frankly, I'm not thrilled about any of these. That's usually my answer. And
And to be honest, Bruce,
I have a
that's
self-service
usually
platform.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's usually the case with most people's portfolio. It's I'm sure you heard of the 80-20 rule. Well, with domain names, it's like the 95-5 rule. So, usually
exactly.
5%. Yeah, so
Exactly.
5% of the domain names drive 90% of the value, whether it's either value or traffic. They want to take over a particular market in terms of a domain strategy, which is smart in some ways.
Right.
Like if you hit a market segment, I had a client many years ago. His name was Bill Gormley. Love the guy. And before anyone knew what nanotechnology was, he started reading about nanotechnology. This is literally back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Hmm.
He registered, 100 different nano names. So,
Okay.
at the time, no one knew what nanotechnology was. And, he registered all his name as moniker. So, we were glad to have the registrations.
Sure.
And sure enough, 15 years later, he ended up selling a bunch of those names through us and through others, and it turned out to be a good buy.
Sure.
But a
Because
lot of,
all you have to do in the end, if you register 100 names and it costs you what, it's going to cost you $1,000. Okay, or is it 10? I guess.
$1,000 per year. Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
registering from scratch, right?
Yeah. It's going to cost you $1,000, and then you sell a couple later for $5,000 each. You've obviously made 10 times your money.
Yeah, and but it doesn't always work out that way for everybody. Everybody
No.
seems to get on that same kind of wave, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
to be honest, it's harder to sell a portfolio than it is to sell individual names. So if you get
Hmm.
a portfolio of those nano names, selling one or two or three for, ten to $50,000, which is what he did. So he paid himself back and made
Sure.
some money. But not all of them are sold, and some people end up with thousands of names, and they'll die
Oh
with
yeah.
thousands of names in their portfolio, and it'll be handed off
I
to their
know.
kids and
Yeah.
estates. And that's another reason why I do appraisals, by the way, for
Right.
estates.
Right.
So some people think by cornering a market in a certain technology field that you're going to get more for a portfolio, but that's not necessarily true. You get a fraction of the upsell part by having the
Hmm.
whole portfolio because most companies aren't, in all those different segments. But the most successful domainers are those that own several different kinds of keywords or dictionary terms or
Right.
traffic domain names in various fields,
Yeah.
so that they're diversified a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I'll get an idea, I'll buy a domain, and then if I don't develop the idea, which is most of the time, I let it go. But it doesn't end up being like a huge loser for me. I've bought a lot of things having to do with my field as defensive domains.
Yep.
And yeah, and I'm letting some go because they're just too far off, They're just like, okay, somebody wants to buy that, that's fine. It's not going to hurt me. So, yeah, I'm getting things, like daily from Name Silo. This is going to expire. I'm thinking, good, let it.
Yeah,
So,
defensive registrations are hardly worth anything. It's only for your own use, so that other people
oh
don't,
yeah,
of course, infringe on your, IP or your what your idea is. But if you were to
right,
let those go, nobody's gonna pick up the misspells anymore
right. It
in
keeps well, it
fear
keeps
of.
competitors out, is what it does.
And if you try to register someone's famous mark, you're going to end up in a UDRP and or a lawsuit or something. It's not worth it. So
Now,
my
exactly.
advice to everybody is stay away from misspells and
Oh, oh,
typos and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. If you're going to buy a misspell or a typo, make it of your own domain.
Yes.
I get things all the time with Pornhub in the name and XNXX in the name and OnlyFans in the name, and I go, I'm going to tell you something right now. Let that domain go and don't even sell it because you are going to end up in a lawsuit.
Yep.
They
That's for
will
sure.
sue you and they will win, and you're going to have to defend it.
Right. And then you have the other side, which is called reverse hijacking, which means that you actually own the common law trademark rights before a famous mark came and registered theirs.
Oh, geez.
And they try to bully you into letting your name go, and then they end up losing, and they can lose up to $100,000 from that. So
Hmm.
As you know, or you might remember, I own the domain name YouPorn with the letter U instead of YOU.
Yes, sir.
And I own that name and the common law trademark way before YouPorn, YOU porn came into existence.
Yeah.
So in that case, you have a right and a legitimate right to own that name, and
Sure.
YouPorn and Mind Geeks or whatever might be interested in buying that someday, which I'd be willing to sell. But I
Yeah.
own that name, and
Right.
I had that well before anybody else had the
How's that
trademark. So
site? How's that site going?
it's going, it's going. It's making some money.
There you go.
It's a
It's
little
nice.
side gig.
That's nice. That's nice to hear, as opposed to the last time we discussed it. So it's a beautiful
Exactly.
thing.
Wasn't doing anything.
Oh, I remember a lot about that. I do
Yeah.
remember a lot about that. We won't
Yeah.
get into the.
Had a
We
little bit of
won't
a
get into.
disaster
Yeah.
of an
Oh God.
introduction to somebody who
Oh
went
God.
down the wrong rabbit hole.
Did I introduce you to him? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Anyway, without giving away your secret sauce, how are domains appraised?
I started off very similar to how real properties appraised. So remember, we talked about the busy street corner
Yes.
of a city
Yes.
or the beachfront property.
Right.
So those types of things are used for virtual real estate the same way. There's marketability, search term value, PPC value,
Mm-hmm.
CPC value. And I happen to own and operate the largest comparable database of sales in the domain industry. So unlike the real estate industry, now, if you think back in the early days where cavemen existed, there were land grabs and real estate, right? And
Yeah.
then real estate was traded off for coins or for cows or for sheep
Hmm.
and for various
Right.
other types of assets,
Sure.
and then it became traded off for daughters.
And in
You
some
know?
right, I was about to say, and
Yeah,
in some
and you
Muslim
got this piece of
countries,
land if you married my daughter.
that still happens.
Yeah, it still happens. Right, right. So if it's a dictionary term, if it's a keyword term, if it's a trending term, if it's a term or a word that has natural type in traffic, if it's something that's in a particular industry that's strong,
Right.
those all carry weight and value, of course. The comparable database is probably the most important thing now because unlike when I first started this and there was only a handful of sales,
Hmm.
now there's a couple million sales to compare to. Now that
Jeez.
doesn't compare to hundreds of millions of sales like there's in real estate, but it is
Right.
comparable. So you can say,
Hmm.
okay, is auto.com like car.com? Yes, it is. Is autos and autos comparable? Yes, they are. Vehicles and autos or trucks, so now you have
Yeah.
segments and market segments of comparable domain names. Those are obviously carry value. You can use a comparable database from sales that were made public and use that as a comparable database. Just like if you had an appraisal of your house, the number one key thing in an house appraisal value is what did the house across the street from me sell for?
Yeah.
Is it also a 4.2 or 4.3?
Yeah.
Does it have a renovation? Does it have
Right.
new appliances, new air
Right.
conditioners, all that shit?
Exactly.
So same kinds of metrics without going into the detail, but we do 21 of those metrics in
Yeah.
order to come to value.
Wow. Wow.
Um, so that's a little bit of a taste of that.
Interesting.
And I've done
It's
over 540,000 domain appraisals myself, physically.
Jesus Christ. That's
So
crazy.
it's been a lot of appraisals. It's not something I like to do anymore, but
Hmm. I
I'll
know.
do it in special cases.
There you go. For me. Thank you, Monte.
Yes, for you and your clients, and when I
Thank
get
you.
hired by the big corporate things and the
Oh,
divorce
sure.
cases and the
Those are
bankruptcies,
profitable. Yeah, those are
yeah, and the
profitable. Mine are.
estate sales, and
Yeah.
somebody dies, what's this
Yeah.
worth? I did an appraisal recently. Well, it was last year for a court ordered takeover by the court ordered a legal group to take over a portfolio of domain names because the CEO committed a crime. So this was called Income Store. Probably some of the people on the show would have heard about it. It was like one of the big scams.
Hmm.
They owned thousands of domain names. They were building websites on the domain names, and then they were using the funds from new investors to pay the old investors off, and they got caught in a Ponzi scheme.
Oh,
And
lovely.
so we ended up having to praise the portfolio and then put the whole portfolio up for sale in several auctions and to help
Hmm.
with the divestiture and to pay back all the original people that got ripped off.
Well, that's
So
good.
they didn't get most of their money back, but they got some
Right.
fraction of it, and it's better than getting nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what bugs me the most? Some brokers and how they use comparables. I had I had one situation, and oh God, myself and this mainstream broker. We were starting to get at each other's throats at a certain point. I'm sure you know this person. I contacted them to buy a domain on the part of, for the group of domains on behalf of my client, and it was laughable because the domain wasn't even close to anything like this, but she was giving me things like autos.com, and it was just like, oh my god, no, no, no. And it just got crazy. But I can't say she wasn't good at what she did. She finally ended up getting the price up fairly high, and my client really needed to buy this because he didn't have the .com of his company, and he made the mistake of not spending a little money and buying the .com of his company before his company got well known. So
Yeah,
he
that's
had
a
to
big
pay the
mistake
price
that
for
people
that.
make.
Oh, it's a
Yeah.
huge mistake, and he said it himself. So
Yeah.
that's okay. We got it for him, and he's happy, and the seller's happy. So that's what it comes down to. You have the exclusive for the extension .hip hop. Now, .hip hop is also a Web3 domain extension on the Ethereum naming system. I always have problems with pronouncing that. It's also the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Now, how do I buy a .hip hop domain?
Yeah, it's good. It's good that you asked. So, if you go to our website, which is get.hiphop, you will
Right.
be pointed to see whether your search term or your domain name is available, and then it'll point you to several registrar partners where you can register them. The really cool thing about .hiphop is that it's the first community and cultural open domain extension besides .gay that is for an entire community and culture that's open without restriction. The hip hop, I mean, the hip hop community and culture is worldwide. It involves about a billion people, billion with a B. It's the 50th anniversary. Hip hop was first created in 1973 on August 11th by
Hmm.
a DJ called Cool Herc, and he
Hmm.
brought out a DJ setup and held a party for his cousin's birthday and started mixing records together, and hip hop was born.
Interesting.
And it became a huge phenomena after that. And now it's the most popular music genre, the most popular dance genre, and fashion genre. But it also is a people identify themselves as a hip hop culture and community. So
Right.
it's really cool to be able to have a new top level domain name that represents that group of people.
Hmm.
And now they can have their own extension, register a .hip hop domain name, use it for their email, use it for their website,
Yeah.
and the cool thing is, on top of that, is it's on the Web3 smart contract blockchain through the Ethereum naming system. Imagine an artist now, unlike the
Hmm.
old days, they can drop a new album or a new song into an NFT that has a .hip hop domain name, and
Hmm.
they're able to share that music. And inside the token is how much the money they get paid every time it changes wallets.
Wow.
Back in the old days, everyone sold their rights for a particular song or a particular hit, and many of the original hip hop stars are broke. They're in poverty because
Hmm.
they sold their rights away back in the early days
Right.
to big music catalog companies. So if you ever
Hmm.
watched NWA, Straight Outta Compton, the movie, um,
No, no,
it
heard
says a
about it.
lot about how the old style contracts worked and how
Yeah,
the music companies took the majority of the rights, kind of
sure.
like Don King and Mike Tyson, and how he
Yeah,
wrote
yeah,
contracts.
that's what I was thinking about. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like you would get a $50,000 check or $100,000 check, but you had to pay for your own studio time and your own agents and producers, and then you end up basically in underwater.
Oh, King
So
was
obviously,
taking King was taking everything from Tyson. It was ridiculous.
yeah, absolutely ridiculous. So this happened in the music industry, not only to hip hop stars, but to rock and roll. I mean, everybody. That people were taken advantage of. Ray Charles was one of the first ones who put his foot down
Mhm.
with ABC Records after he left his former record company. He said, what, I need to retain the rights to my music, and I
Mhm.
want 60% of the proceeds, and he won. And so
Sure.
music rights and music contracts were reborn from that, a long, long time ago. But a lot of the hip
Right.
hop stars, unfortunately, didn't catch on to that wave.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're really excited about Hip Hop, and it just so happened, it kind of fell in my lap. But after I bought the registry and got a partner who's from the Bronx and who's a successful businessman in New York, we figured out after we bought it that's the 50th anniversary coming up.
That's
So it just
great.
kind of so obviously we're going to ride the wave of that, and we're going to be involved in a lot of concerts, celebrations, promotions. The Hip Hop Museum is being built and will open up in 2024 in the Bronx. It's a
Hmm.
huge project. The mayor of New York is all behind all kinds of calendar events regarding the birth of hip hop, the celebration
Nice.
and the birthday, and it's going to
Very
be
cool.
worldwide. So we're really excited about it. And
Good.
there's millions and millions and millions of available domain names because it's a new registry. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a good speculation opportunity for investment. And also, we've reserved all the famous stars and hip hop album names and music label covers names so that they can't be cyber squatted. So we reserve those for those that will get those because
Yeah.
they have the rights to them this time.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. So, what exactly, besides what you already said, is a Web3 domain extension, and how does it relate to Ethereum?
Well, the ENS, which is the Ethereum naming system, is different than what people might hear that handshake names are. Or there's a few different types of Web3 names. So some Web3 names are made up names that now they act like domain names, but you can't build a website on them. You can't use it for your email, but they're short name, so you don't have to send people your token address, which is
Hmm.
a 64 to 75 digit, tokenized alphanumeric code which
Right.
no one can memorize. So you can now send it to a domain name. You can send money, cryptocurrency back and forth to the domain name because it's on the blockchain and on a smart contract. So that's one advantage. The
Hmm.
other advantage is that Ethereum naming system complies with ICANN. It's the only blockchain domain name that actually follows ICANN regulations and rules. And
Hmm.
that's why .hip hop and some other extensions you can buy the domain name, have your website and use it in your email where you can't for handshake names, for example, and
Right.
you can use it as a token address.
Hmm.
So it gives an advantage. I like ENS a little bit better. I'm not opposed to the other extensions that are Web3.
Right.
It's just that in the future, there's going to be something called collision where the next round of ICANN accredited domain extensions might contain a .crypto or a .NFT. And there's already those that exist in the Web3 handshake type
Mm.
domain names or unstoppable domain names. Those are the other ones.
Mm.
And once there's an ICANN accredited extension, there's going to be something called collision because which extension is more
Right.
important,
Right.
which one's going to exist.
Yeah.
And my gut tells me that the ICANN extensions will still exist
Oh, yeah.
for
Well, because
everything
they have
else.
well, they have the power, right?
Well, they have the DNS power, so
Hmm.
if you want to have a website or an email address, you're going to want that.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So besides .com and .hip hop that we just talked about, what are some of the other up and coming extensions that people should be investing in?
In the current round of extensions, some of the most successful new extensions have been something like .club, which I'm sure you heard about.
Mm-hmm.
I helped .club create their premium lists and help them get started with creating, what were the premium names left of the dot to the right of the dot, so that
Mm-hmm.
the most important things with new extensions is that there has to be linguistic flow from the right of the dot to the left of the dot, or from the left of the dot to the right of the dot. So
Makes sense.
if you have buy.cars, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Rap.hip hop, dance.hip hop, songs.hip hop, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
If you have curtains.cars, that doesn't make much sense. Or if you have some obscure name to the left of the dot, that doesn't make sense. So
Sure.
a lot of the popular extensions, you want to make sure that there's linguistic flow to the left of the dot, so it makes sense to somebody when they're typing it in. The whole goal is to, make it easier to search, make it easier to remember, make it easy to spell, and make sure that if you're not using a .com, that you make sure that your clients and customers know that you use an extension now that's one of the new extensions. So you got to make sure it's on your business cards, in your
Yep.
advertising, and so on and so forth. So I like things like .club. I like things like .tech,
Mm-hmm.
.site. There's going to be a new .web that's going to be coming out soon. That's going to
Oh,
compete with
great.
.com. Of course, I love .hip hop
You
for its
better.
for its cultural community and its millions of variable options to do that. So, and I don't know what's coming in the new round, which should be
Mm-hmm.
coming out in 2025 to 26 or something. But
Yeah.
apparently, there'll be more extensions available, based off of current trends and corporate. There's a lot of corporations that felt that they got gypped out and didn't understand what it was all about. So, there is a
Okay.
.ibm. There's a lot of 300 corporate names that
Jeez.
have, that now people, you want your email and your website to end in your extension that you're famous for. You don't want it to be a .com necessarily because nobody knows what com means.
Mm.
Com
Interesting.
stands for commercial, but people think it stood for communication or commerce or community or
Right.
communication, and it doesn't. It stands for
Right.
commercial, which meant for
Interesting.
profit at the time.
Right.
And com is not a dictionary term,
Yeah.
but hip hop is, and
Right.
dot autos is, and dot sex is.
Right.
So That's what's really important.
Okay. Things are changing. If I have a .com or another primary domain like .net or .biz, what other extensions of my brand should I own?
You mean to cover yourself in defensive
Yeah,
registrations?
exactly.
Well, the most common, coverage obviously is .net, .com, .org. If you're just doing general coverage, I'll be the first one to tell you don't need to do it in all 1,000 extensions. Of course not. So if you are in certain industries, you should cover yourself in those industries. If you are in the tech industry, you should get a .tech. If you're in the website industry, you should get a .website or
Hmm.
.site, to help cover you as well. Not only just to
Hmm.
cover you, but you may want to use them as subsites or other domain site, projects. Use link juice and
Hmm.
link each other's site together. Defensive registration is really important for corporations based off of what industry you're in and what you're doing. So if I'm
Okay.
in the adult industry, I probably want to cover myself in some of those adult extensions,
Right.
.sex, .adult, .porn, .XXX, for
Yeah, I
sure.
got that one.
Why
Yeah.
not? Plus, you can
Yeah.
launch other websites off of each of those in your same keywords.
It's true.
And the same goes for any industry, I would say.
Okay. Very good. So, last question. What's your best advice for people who liken themselves as domain investors?
Best advice is to look at the newest trends. Also look at buying opportunities in down economic environments like now, where
Hmm.
people are selling things at a discount because everything's cyclical and it will go back up again.
Sure.
Over time, this market, this domain investment market, has always grown in value over time, just like the stock market has. Rarity is the key to investment value. So as the .com extensions keep running out, as the .com keyword names keep running out because they've been registered or in use, the best simulation, best assimilation to this whole process, which I think we've discussed before, is once upon a time there was an 800 number that was the free toll free number in the industry.
Right.
And so there used to be an 800 buy cars, an 800 doctors, an 800 flowers. And that's because no one could remember the digits of the phone number. So they
Sure.
remembered the word and they would spell
Right.
out the word on your phone
Right.
pad. When all those extensions, when all those keywords ran out and all those number combinations ran out, what did they do? They expanded the toll free
888,
database.
866,
855,
877.
844,
Hmm.
833, 822. There's 20 toll free numbers.
Yeah.
And every single toll free number has a buy cars, and they're all registered by different companies. Again, our new generation of users don't even know what an 800 number is because everything is free on the cell phone.
Of course.
So, but 800 Flowers didn't get rid of their 800 number, nor did they get rid of 800flowers.com, which is a keyword that they use. And the
Hmm.
reason for that is they established loyalty and brand recognition off of it. So those were always important.
Right.
So my advice is you look for some of the new extensions in those same keywords because they'll be almost as popular as that 800 extension was.
Hmm.
Over time, as
Hmm.
your as the new generation start using, start getting on the web, which they all will,
Yeah.
they know that com's not available, so they're going to go to an alternate extension that makes sense. If you're a
Right.
lawyer, why not get a .law or a .legal? If
Yeah.
you're in the adult industry, get a .XXX or .porn or .adult or .sex.
Or all of
If
them.
you're in the music
Yeah.
industry, you're going to get a .music, which is restricted when it comes out, or .hip hop, or something that related, because it makes linguistic sense and it makes sense, and that's where the trend is going. And you want to look for trends, new trends in what you see in the news and stuff, and then you'll pick up new keywords. The Urban Dictionary is everly expanding as well.
Every
That
day.
adds a whole new type of linguistic wording to things, and so then you'll see more
Mhm.
.coms and more nets and orgs and other extensions become popular because of that.
Fabulous. Hey, Monty, I'd like to thank you for being back with us again, back and again. That's redundant. On Adult Say Broker Talk, and I hope we'll get a chance to do this again soon.
I really appreciate the time, Bruce. And if anybody needs to get a hold of me, you can get in touch with me at Monte at get.hiphop or Monte at rightofthedot.com.
Okay. You heard it, everyone. Thanks, Monty.
Thanks, Bruce. I really appreciate it.
My broker tip today is part 3 of what to do to make your site more valuable for when you decide to sell it later. Last week, we talked about making a good offer and how to structure your site. Next, keep your website design up to date. Do a redesign from time to time. People will tend to think your site is the same as ever and click out of it without even looking if something doesn't change. So keep it fresh and up to date. Times change, so should your website. Look at what your competitors are doing and see what it is you really like. If you know a site to be successful, look at what they're doing and do some of the same things. I'm not saying copy it. I'm just suggesting you improve your site by looking around a bit. You've got to keep up with the times or you'll end up being left behind. Also, keep an eye on your competition and make sure you're offering everything on your site that they are or more. Don't just look at their design, but make sure your offers are good and competitive. The same goes for your content. Do you ever wonder why one site does well and others don't? Check out the competition's content. What are they doing that you're not doing? Be willing to make changes. People can't understand why they're losing sales to a competitor, yet the competitor is clearly doing everything better. Emulate success. Make sure everything on your website works well. Make sure all of your links work properly. Check them on a regular basis. If things don't work, you're going to lose customers. People are not patient these days. People's attention spans are like that of a gnat. They click out immediately and go to the next result in Google if they don't find what they're looking for, or if the site is hard to navigate or things don't work. Check all your internal scripts and plugins and make sure they're updated regularly as well. We'll talk about this subject more next week. And next week, we'll be speaking with Zach Osborne of Exclusive Life. And that's it for this week's Adult Site Broker Talk. I'd once again like to thank my guest, Monte Khan of Right of the Dot. Talk to you again next week on Adult Site Broker Talk. I'm Bruce Friedman.